Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I'll be making this beautiful crisscross top you see me wearing. So if this is something you're interested in, then let's get right into the video. For this tutorial, I have my paper folded in two like this because it's an asymmetric style, and I'll be starting off like the basic bodice pattern. So I have my starting line, which is my shoulder line. So I'll be marking half of my shoulder measurement, which is 7 on this line, and then 3 inches, which is my neck width. And then from there, I'll be putting in my vertical measurement, that is my shoulder to bust and shoulder to waist, which is 17. And then I'll mark the same on the other side and then connect the dots to give me horizontal lines. And then from the bust line, I'll go down 3 inches for my under bust. What I'm going to do is to go down 3 inches for my neck depth and then connect the dot with a curve. So that will give me the basic neckline. Now I'm going to go down 1 inches from the 7 inches mark like this and then connect it to the neckline like this. And then from there I'll be putting in my armhole depth, which is the bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5. So I'll mark that and then measure how much it is to the bust point and then mark it on the other side and connect it to form a horizontal line, and this line will be the chest line. So on this line I would measure 7 inches, which is half of my shoulder measurement, and then connect it to the shoulder like that. And then on this armhole depth I would divide it in half, and then from that point I'll go in 1 inch. From there I will connect it from the shoulder through this point to the chest line to form the armhole. Now I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurement, that is the nipple to nipple divided into 2. So mine is 4 inches, the total length is 8 divided by 2, which is 4 inches. So once I've plugged that in, I will connect it to form a vertical line like this. And then what I'm doing now is just adding half an inch to the waistline for stitching allowance. So I'm labeling the line. This is the chest line, bust line, under bust line, and the waistline. So what I'm going to do now is to put in the dots. So on the waistline I went on both sides 3/4 of an inch and also did the same on the underbust line and then connected it to form a straight line. And then from the bust line to the underbust line I'll be connecting it with a curve like this. So once this is done, I'll be transferring the measurement and everything to the other side of the paper. That is why I folded it in half, because I wanted to have the full front bodice pattern, because this is an asymmetric style like I already said. So I will put in the center line like this and then transfer what is on this side onto the other side. So I went ahead to do that off camera, so do yours and then we'll continue from there. So what I'm going to do now is to mark the shoulder, and then from the neckline I'll go in 1 inch on the shoulder and then connect it with a curve to the armhole. So I'll be playing around with this until I get a perfect curved neckline. Once I've achieved the desired neckline, now on the waist at the center line on the right side, I'll be going in half of an inch. And then on the shoulder line from the 1 inch mark, I would go in 1.5 inch and then connect it with the line from the chest line to the 1/2 inch mark on the waistline. But on the chest line, I went down 1/2 inch before connecting the line from the shoulder like this through that 1/2 inch mark and then to the 1/2 inch also on the waistline. And then with this also, I'll be playing around from the chest line to achieve a nice curve over there. Sunshine, blue skies, gotta cry. Once I've achieved that, what I'm going to do on the neckline is to draw a straight line around this side of the neckline to the bust point. And then on the line, I'll be going in 1/2 inch on both sides to create a dot. And this is to eliminate any extra or excess fabric around the neckline. Else it will be gaping. You see that it would lay flat on the chest. So I'll label this side the side front and then this side the center front. And then I'll be putting in my measurements. So from the center, I would measure quarter of my waist measurement plus the dot interval plus 1 inch stitch allowance. And then from the chest line from the center, I would mark quarter of my bust measurement plus the dot interval. So I measure whatever I have plus 1 inch allowance. But then the paper, there was not enough space, so I have to put extra paper and then put in my 1 inch stitching allowance and then connect the line from the chest line to the waistline like this. So basically the front pattern is done. So what I'm doing now is to just go in with my marker to emphasize all the parts that will be needed for this particular top for the front pattern. And then I'll be putting in some notches to help me, to guide me on where I would be connecting those parts together. And then I put in how many pieces I'll be cutting for each part. So I'll be cutting 4 each for this top, 2 for the lining and 2 for the fashion fabric. So this is the front pattern and this is how it's supposed to look. It's so easy to make, I suppose. So now for the back pattern, this is how I went ahead and put in some of the measurements. So I put in the 1 inch tip extension and then the waistline, bust line, chest line, shoulder line, just like we did for the front. So you can mark it onto this point, and once you have that on the armhole depth, I divided it in half and then connected it from that midpoint to the chest line like this. And then at the neckline, I went down 1 inch at the back and then connected it to the neck width. So now what I'm going to do is to put in the nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 for me. That is 8 divided by 2. And then connect it to form a vertical line, just like we did for the front. And what I'm going to do now is to put in the dot. So I went in 1/2 inch on both sides and connected it to the bust point like this. So now I'll be marking my horizontal measurement. So I'll divide my bust measurement in 4 and then mark it on my chest line plus 1 inch allowance. And then what I'm doing now is adding 1/2 inch stitching allowance on the waistline. So now I'm just extending the dart legs to that allowance. So on the waistline, I measure quarter of my waist measurement plus the dart interval. And what I forgot to do on the back pattern on the waist was to add allowance. So you can see at this moment I was a bit confused because it was too curvy for my liking. So you see that I measured the bust again to see if it was correct, but what I was missing was the 1 inch allowance on the waistline. So remember to put your allowance. So what I'm going to do now is to go down about 1.5 inch from the bust line just to create the back neck depth for this top. And then on the new neckline at the center of the dart, I went out 1/4 inch on both sides. This is also to eliminate any extra fabric around that area so that it will lay really flat on the back. So once I have that, what I'm going to do now is to create the straps for this top. So I'll be going in 1 inch just like I did on the front, and then I'll use the front shoulder to mark the shoulder for the back strap. So once I have that, now you can create whatever shape of strap you want. So I'll just be extending the lines like this. If you want, you can make your lines really straight. You can have straight straps, but this is how I want my straps to be for the back. So basically the pattern for the back is done. So this is the center back and that's the side back. And then I'll be going in with my marker to emphasize all the lines needed. But remember, I forgot to add the 1 inch allowance on the waistline, which I did later. And when I remembered, it was too late because I had already cut out the fabric. So I'll label this the back strap, and what I'm going to do now is to cut out the pattern. Now for the back that I'll be closing it on the pattern. If you want, you can just leave it and stitch it on the fabric, but most of the time I do close it on the pattern so that I'm not going to be stitching it on the fabric. So I'm just using the scissors to perfect that curve over there and then go on to cut the patterns out. And then for the strap, what I did was to notch the center like that so that I'll know where to attach it to the back. So these are the back pattern pieces, and this is how the strap will be attached at the back of the top. So that's why you have to notch the center. And these are all the pieces I'll be needing for this top. So I'll be needing 4 of the back pieces, 2 for the lining and 2 for the fashion fabric, and also 4 for the strap, also 2 for the lining and 2 for the fashion fabric. So this is the end of part 1. See you in part 2.